Donald Trump used an autopen. George Bush used an autopen. Barack Obama used an autopen, and Joe Biden used an autopen. What's an autopen? It's a mechanical device that presidents use in order to crank out their signature. They do it themselves. It's mechanical, not digital. It's not electronic, and it's completely lawful. Except Donald Trump wants to exercise a power he doesn't have in order to vitiate, just throw away Joe Biden's pardons, including of his family, including of his son, including of members of the Jan 6 committee and their staff, including of Mark Milley and Dr. Fauci, Liz Cheney, and Benny Thompson and Adam Kinzinger, because he used an autopen. And I assure you that if Joe Biden hadn't used an autopen, and while he was signing 70 or 80 items in one sitting, if the signatures didn't match, and they wouldn't match, I assure you, you'd be hearing Donald Trump say, number 16 doesn't match 38, doesn't match 42. None of it matches. He didn't write it himself. Presidents use an autopen. It's a mechanical device. I think FDR used an autopen. Okay? It is controlled by the President of the United States, and there's no requirement that a pardon even be signed or even in writing or on a piece of paper. I cover it all right here on Legal AF. You may have woken up to yet another rant from Donald Trump, this time saying Sleepy Joe didn't even sign his own pardons, making them invalid, and I'm going to invalidate them. No, you're actually not. First of all, Donald Trump wants to just completely wallpaper over the fact that he used an autopen at least 30 times in his own administration. I'll repeat that. Donald Trump used an autopen. Obama used an autopen for his spending bills and other things. George W. Bush used it, including for pardons. We have Department of Justice precedent dating back to 1929. We've got a recent federal court decision in the last 5 or 10 years that talks about the fact that we don't have to worry about pens or no pens and who was signing and not signing. As long as there is an unambiguous manifestation of the president's intent to pardon somebody, that person is pardoned. I defy you to find in the Constitution any language that requires a writing at all, let alone a signed writing. Now, I've been involved with cases at the federal court level and state court level where somebody's signature has been challenged. The authenticity of a document's been challenged. And there's a process by which courts and juries and judges try to check exemplars against writings to determine. It turns jurors into handwriting experts. I will tell you straight, my handwriting, I tried to be able to replicate the same signature. I developed my own signature, something I felt comfortable with in the last 10 years or so. If you line up signatures for me, I can identify it. But to other people, a stranger, a third party, they go, I don't know, this doesn't look like this. That M doesn't look, that S, that P, the K, that can't be the same guy. No. Yeah, because we're not writing to one day validate and justify it in a court of law. So if I'm the president of the United States like Joe Biden, and I was acting as prolific as he was in the time between November the 5th when he knew he lost and a minute before noon on January 20th when the new president was sworn in. And we covered here on Legal AF all of the bills that he and executive orders that he entered and the pardons that he entered. And he did 1,300 commutations of sentences, 2,000, almost 2,000 in total. I mean, does anybody fault him for not wanting to sit there and sign for the entire day? Do I want the president of the United States sitting in a room in a signing ceremony for several hours and then just have somebody like Donald Trump say, I have your 75 pardons on this one day. Signatures don't match. Sleepy Joe. We don't have to worry about that. Precedent for the Department of Justice going back almost over 100 years. Combined with Supreme Court precedent, combined with federal court precedent, says the same thing. No writings required. That's why we worried about self-pardon by Donald Trump and that he'd have it in his back pocket, that he'd already pardoned people. Came up during the immunity oral argument at the United States Supreme Court when Kavanaugh was speculating about, whatever can be self-pardon. That's interesting. It is the absolute core presidential power under Article 2 that even this United States Supreme Court believes is inviolable. And now Donald Trump wants to exercise for himself some phony power that he doesn't have to cancel out the pardons of the prior guy or the prior person. That doesn't exist. but we're lurching again. I mean, I know I sound like a broken record, but keep listening. We're lurching from one constitutional crisis to another almost on a daily basis. I just did another series of hot takes on Donald Trump and his administration purposefully flouting the rules and the orders of federal judges over and over again, ignoring them. And what constitutional crisis that's going to create up to the Supreme Court. As if, what if Donald Trump doesn't like the Supreme Court ruling? Does he just flout that? How does the courts enforce their power against a person who's out of control? That is the ultimate question. And so here, we're creating another crisis of Donald Trump's making, right? Let's go through the fundamentals, the precepts. Pardon power, absolute. Core constitutional power can't be violated. That says the United States Supreme Court as recently as the immunity decision. That's one. Two, doesn't have to be in writing. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say it have to be in writing. Sure, historical precedent, most presidents have done it in writing. There's no requirement that it be done in writing. There's no requirement that it be a certain type of fancy ceremony or commemorative event, or there be a proclamation that go along with it, although there often is. It just requires that there be a manifestation unambiguously that the president is exercising that power from his core powers of the Constitution. That's it. That people do it in writing is of no moment. Three, there's no requirement that it be signed with what we call a wet ink signature. You don't have to take a blue pen or a quill or put it into a ink pot and sign it with a powdered wig and then seal it with some sort of wax seal dripping. You don't have to do that anymore with ribbons attached to it. Where are we, the old-timey times? Autopen has been used by presidents. And I'll put up a picture of it. It's not a digital computer or robot that's signing it. The president is in control of the autopen, effectively. Implements it, watches it, writes the original signature that's now replicated. Stays in the room while it's being done. He's not out hitting golf balls like Donald Trump every weekend. And Trump knows that. He did it 30 times. George Bush did it on pardons. Obama did it on major bills. And the reason for it is, do I really want the president sitting there doing signing 100 pieces of paper and getting cramps? Not because he's lazy, not because he's senile, not because he's out of it. I know the Heritage Foundation was like, oh my God, let's analyze all the signatures. Look at how many of them were used by autopen. Who cares? I'm glad he was doing other things besides sitting there and signing. And then having them challenge the handwriting. We got a handwriting expert. The 90 signatures don't match that day. Yeah, no shit. I've tried. I've had to sit and do dozens and dozens of agreements and settlement agreements, let's say. I assure you, my number 1 and my number 12 don't match. Not because I'm intentionally doing it. It's just I'm not a robot. I'm not an autopen. So we're going to continue to follow what's going to happen next. Next, Donald Trump's going to authorize his Department of Justice to go after the people who were pardoned. Anthony Fauci, Mark Milley, the Jan 6 committee, those Republicans that opposed him, anybody else in the Biden family, anybody else that got a pardon, Hunter Biden. And then we're going to have to they're going to start a prosecution and a grand jury. We're going to have motion practice before federal judges. We're going to have a fight over the pardon power. It's going to go up to the United States Supreme Court. And the question for me and for our audience is Donald Trump even going to abide by what the United States Supreme Court says? They've created a Frankenstein, and now they're going to have to control him if they can. We know how that movie ended and that book ended. So I'll continue to follow it right here on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Hit the free subscribe button, right? We're continuing to build this pro-democracy channel with your help at the intersection of law and politics. And then, of course, we've got the OG podcast, Legal AF. 4-year anniversary, at least for Legal AF. We were on the air about 6 months earlier on the Midas Touch Network, Ben Meiselas and me. But Legal AF itself, 4 years old as of today. We appreciate you being here on the YouTube channel, following us on the podcast, and my hot takes right here. Until my next reporting, I'm Michael Popok. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.